Welcome back, Raider Nation. All right, so, I got a lot of stuff, was reading a lot of stuff, had the opportunity to look at a lot of stuff while I was trying to mess around with YouTube for blocking me and doing all of these different types of things. And I got to watch a lot of different videos. I got to watch Ken Norton's video. This guy, just makes some ridiculous, he made a ridiculous comment. When we started out, the whole Ken Norton debacle, there's the question of whether we should get rid of Ken Norton. And the answer is obvious. Yes, of course. This defense is terrible. This defensive philosophy has proven to not work anywhere other than in Seattle with that roster and that coach. So, you watch Ken Norton, and again, I went back and I was watching the game over again, and he's basically just standing there watching things happen. If you watch a guy like Rex Ryan on the sideline, if you even watch Mike Smith that I was watching in the Tampa Bay game, you see a lot of animation. And again, I was watching a little bit of the Buffalo game. And I saw, both of the Ryans doing a lot of talking. They were communicating back and forth to one another, arguing, hey, we got to do this, we got to do that. A lot of stuff going on, a lot of communication. You watch Ken Norton, and he's not doing a lot of communication, which means that he's probably not involved in what's going on the field. He may be involved in terms of working with guys, teaching guys, pumping guys up. But I just don't think, and I don't know this for sure, but when, the defense is out there and you're watching a guy and he's like this. That to me, that tells me, why aren't you communicating? This isn't after the 15 seconds or whatever. You need to be communicating. I see Jack Del Rio, he's got the headphones on. He's doing a lot of talking, going back and forth. You watch when they show in the booth with Musgrave, he's talking into his microphone. He's talking to the guy that's next to him. There's just constantly, they're in the game. They're involved in the game. And what I see from Ken Norton is that he's not involved in the game at all whatsoever. So looking at this defense, however, I was kind of looking at it, and I looked at the cheat sheet that the NFL Network put up at the beginning of the season, and we had guys like Ben Heaney in there, and they were just showing a lot of different things. And I just thought, what is this defense? It's really bizarre. You've got a outside linebacker that really is a defensive end. You've got another outside linebacker that really is a defensive end. You've got a middle linebacker that is being forced almost every play to take on pulling guards and guys that are coming out to block him because the middle of your defense just is, I don't even know what to say about those guys. They're just getting pushed around, or they're shooting the wrong gaps, and they're just being taken advantage of. There's just a ton of eye violations that go on with this team. So you've got an interior defensive line that gets pushed around. You have outside linebackers trying to contain the edge. And Khalil Mack does a great job of it, but he should specifically just be a defensive end. He shouldn't be out there covering guys. So the line itself has some flaws on it. Your middle linebacker, again, is being forced to take on a guard and then make the tackle. One of your outside linebackers is almost always gone. The other guy has lost a step. He's a good tackler, but pretty much he's not great in coverage. So you're not getting the appropriate pressure. You're allowing huge areas of your field to be real estate to be dominated by the opposing team. You got a guy that's not a strong point of contact linebacker that's lost a step, that isn't very good in coverage, but has to cover a lot of area because, well, you're rushing one of your linebackers constantly. Your cornerbacks, basically, one of your cornerbacks is a liability in coverage. He keeps getting beat over and over again. He's lost a step. It was a mistake to bring him in. One of the few moves that Reggie McKenzie made that wasn't a good one. So that means that your Pro Bowl safety has to, he can't play that deep third like he's supposed to. He's got to watch what's going on with the cornerback, and you're asking him to do too much. And then you've got a guy that's a ball hawking safety that's a little bit too small that you're asking to play strong safety. And if he's not in there, then you've got a cornerback in there. Who does that? I mean, I understand necessity and everything else, and I think the Mario Edwards Jr. injury affected everything. He's probably the defensive MVP, not Khalil Mack. I think they probably wanted him to be in there from the very beginning. He was going to be in there with Jelly Ellis. I think they were transitioning Williams out. I think Williams went into the doghouse, never got himself out of the doghouse, has been ineffective, is nowhere near the player that he was last year. And so I think when they went out and drafted Jihad Ward, he was going to be our defensive end. You could have put Autry on one side, Ward on the other side, and had Mario Edwards Jr. and he would have been the defensive tackle. You would have had Ellis next to him in some rotations, and then they would have been able to utilize Khalil Mack and Bruce Irvin more in a 34 linebacker set as opposed to a 43 linebacker set, where you begin eliminating people just by where you're positioning them. So I think that injury really hurt. I think they would have been so much better. They would have had so much more to throw at you. They would have been so much more diverse. The middle linebackers wouldn't have been covering as much field. I think they thought that they were really good in the interior of that defensive line based on the play from the previous year. And they just never realized how much of a liability that is. And they thought Ben Haney was going to be the answer, right? I mean, that's how much of a mistake that was. I mean, you look at Zach Thomas and some of these smaller linebackers, and they can play because, all they have to do is run and hit. They've got the big guys in front of them, and that never materialized. So, Amerson, Joseph should be playing at free safety, where he can roam, run, hit, and make interceptions. Take advantage of his speed. I think Amerson, Joseph are the two guys that you could keep back there. You gotta just get rid of everything else. TJ Carey should be starting, in my opinion. I don't care how much money we've given Sean Smith. He's not a good player. We see it week after week after week, but we're told on social media and some of these things, oh, he's a really good. No, he's terrible. And so when you start to look at that, you start to say there are so many sort of foundational flaws in terms of personnel. How could you possibly get these guys to do the things that they're doing? Ken Norton said, well, guys got to see where guys are, and that shouldn't happen anymore. They've got to tackle, and they've got to do this, they've got to do that. And he's making the assumption that they're in a position to tackle. And all too often we've seen guys wide open. There is nobody around them, and people then have to come up and make the tackles, whether it's guys getting picked and stuff like that. So I go into this offseason and I say, okay, I'm going to go out and get a guy like Rex Ryan, and I'm going to go out and I'm going to use my draft picks exclusively on defense. I don't think we need anything on offense. I think with a good enough defense, even Latavius Murray, you could re-sign him and keep the kids and go with that with a smothering defense and a healthy Derek Carr. I think that would be totally fine. But we have to develop something a little more like what Houston has, just a strong interior, force guys to try to go outside and allow our guys to flow and make the tackles that way. We can't just be run on the way that we've been getting run on. And I just can't believe what has happened to Williams. I can't believe it. I watch him, Jelly Ellis, I just watch these guys get pushed around. This defense foundationally, it's just kind of flawed, and I think that it's hard for Ken Norton or for Jack Del Rio or anybody else to effectively call a defense because of how they're trying to utilize these players. And when Derek Carr is in there, it works. But when he's not in there, It just doesn't, and it hasn't worked across the league. So I'll say it again, you know, the experiment should be over. If we truly are going to be a contender, we need to bring in somebody that is going to do that for us. And I just don't believe that is Ken Norton. All right, guys, that's it for this segment. We will be right back.